This is the panel on The Message is All About Love. As you have heard, this conference is about the discovery of hope following grief and loss. The near-death experience is one of the most hopeful messages to come forth in recent times. People who die and return bring with them information about life after death and about the love, peace, and joy they find on the other side. They say the total acceptance they feel there is available to us all. The first time I read Dr. Raymond Moody's book, Life After Life, which was published in 1975 and defined the term near-death experience, the thing that struck me the most deeply about the stories and the statements that he had was the love that the people talked about that they had encountered after going out of their body, sometimes through a tunnel to get to the light. So to learn more about the love and about life after death, I joined IANDS in 1994, and I keep coming back year after year to these conferences because I find so much love here. My own research was to learn as much as I could about the love that was reported by near-death experiencers. What is this thing that they talk about? What are the parameters of it? Who gets to experience it? When is it experienced? What do they learn about it when they're over there or after they come back? I used 478 near-death experiencers that I received as an approved researcher from IANDS, and I discovered that the love is much more than we can even imagine here on earth. Not only did near-death experiencers report that there is no death, that they are alive and well after leaving their bodies, but they also say that the love they feel is so far beyond what we know here that they are at a loss to make comparisons. But fortunately, they try and make some very, very beautiful and profound and powerful statements about that love in their accounts. In the light, they feel total unconditional love as well as peace and joy. Many say that learning to love as they now know they are loved is an important part of our purpose here on earth. And some say really amazing things about the nature of love, such as everything is made out of love. Everything. Love is our essence at the core of our being. And they say love is an energy, power, and the force of the universe. And if you want to know more about my research into that, I have published a book, Revelations of Profound Love, which is available in the bookstore. So I hope you get a chance to read it. It brings that love into this plane just by hearing enough stories about it. In this panel, we want to share with you some of the love we have experienced through near-death and other mystical experiences. Our three panelists have touched that love and will never forget it. They now believe that part of their purpose on earth is to share that love and to bring that love into manifestation on earth. Our first speaker is going to be Johanna Krohne-Ravenstein. That was not easy. I could have done better, but that's pretty good. Joanna is here from Amsterdam. She's a longtime member of IANDS. She is now a spiritual counselor and teacher at a college for paranormal therapists in Holland. She's given many lectures in the Netherlands about near-death experiences. She has had 2 experiences of her own and has had many contacts with loved ones on the other side. Shall I tell about all of you before I bring you up here? Our second panelist is Martha Harbison. She's another near-death experiencer who was an entrepreneurial CEO and CFO before her experience. Since her NDE, she's spent 7 years integrating it and learning how to help others awaken to the love and higher reality she knows so well. She's also considers herself a catalyst for the expansion of human consciousness. She has a website, Seeing the Light, and is writing a book about jobs in heaven. Roland Comtois is a near-death experiencer who shares his knowledge of the afterlife, his conviction of the power of eternal love, and his gifts as a medium around the world. His messages from the departed bring upliftment and comfort to the bereaved. He has hosted 6 after-loss conferences in Rhode Island and Connecticut, primarily for bereaved persons, and has a full international speaking schedule. He has an internet radio show, Soul Stories, S-O-U-L Stories, a website, rolandcomtois.net, and has published 2 books as well as meditation and teaching CDs, which are available on his website. After we hear from each of our 3 speakers, we will try to take questions at the end if there's enough time, but as Debbie said, we want to stay on schedule. I would like you to welcome Joanna.
I hardly know where to begin. When Debbie just told that some people didn't want to be filmed, I thought of my second husband, who 16 years ago wouldn't have been caught dead in an environment like this. He was a professor in ophthalmology when I met him, and he was very skeptic about these kind of things. And when I told him at our first lunch that I was lecturing or helping, especially helping at the time people with near-death experience and other mystical experiences like Kundalini and etc., he said, "Do you believe in that nonsense?" And I said, "Yeah. Can you prove it's not true?" No. He couldn't prove that. So I said, "As long as you can't prove anything, please leave your comments before you know." And because I was sick of all these easy comments, like nonsense and this. And so this first lunch was not the most pleasant. But we found each other in music, in classical music, and he became my opera friend. And he went with me to lectures. He died 1.5 years ago, and he was really my great love. He went with me to lectures and became more and more convinced, because all these beautiful, intelligent people couldn't invent all those things. And also, we married a few years later after this first lunch, so it all came good. So we married, and about 10 years after our marriage, he had an experience himself, not a near-death experience, but an angel experience. It's far too long to talk about that, but that changed him completely. He only said all the time, "I can't prove it, but it happened." I said, "Yeah, but I can't prove it." And he started to read, Pim van Lommel's book, the famous cardiologist in Holland, he did such good research. And there's also an equally famous neurosurgeon in Holland, who wrote also a bestseller, We Are Our Brains. So the two had both bestsellers, but they were, he really researched it. And when he died, very suddenly, I had lots of contact with him afterwards. And my husband was also always doing things with computers and with music. And so I suddenly heard songs on the radio, or songs on my CD player, or when I picked up the phone, I heard a love song that we both loved very much. How he did it, I don't know. Bill Guggenheim will talk about Hello from Heaven, 12 ways. He distinguishes 12 ways of that people make contact with after their death. But my husband did it often with electronic material, and I felt the love through that. And but when I think about love, of course, this experience of love was my meeting with Christ when I was 5 years old. When I felt such love that later on I couldn't sit in our dogmatic Protestant church of my parents without thinking they got it all wrong all the time. So I became a dreamer. I dreamt through school, I dreamt through college, and I had to work a bit at university, but basically I was not here, I was always homesick. And at 33, I got another experience, and also right after that a Kundalini experience, which was so strong, this kind of loving energy that can take you completely over, that I loved everybody, but unconditionally. I did that. I wasn't loved like that. Yeah, I know I was, but I felt that feeling for everybody. And this is something you never forget. And I didn't know what it was, and I was later helped by Kenneth Ring to distinguish what this was and how I could be grounded again. I think in this time, our mission is to realize that we are connected with that love, and not to look for it outside anymore, but to feel it really inside. And many people are reaching that. But what are the impediments? It's often fear. Eh? There's this famous quote: "Fear is the antidote, is the opposite of love, not hate. Fear." Eh? And it's fear, and it is judgment. It's often self-judgment. And you know anything about life reviews? About 18% of all the people with a near-death experience, they have a life review. And they feel so loved, and they feel they are not judged when they see their life. They judge themselves. But in daily life, we have this judgment for ourselves all the time. Oh, I did that wrong. And we have to learn to love ourselves as we are loved in reality. What I felt, and what so many people of us felt when we had this near-death experience. And then I want to tell you, after this, at a certain moment in life, I felt alone again, because I came from this Protestant university background where nobody was really interested in this subject. So I was kind of, I had friends, of course, but in the family, and so I was kind of outsider. My mother always said, like, yeah, Joanna, yeah, she's very intelligent and she's very sweet, but, you know, she has such strange ideas. It's always that but, you know. And I felt also, I was homesick. I felt like going home. I asked God, please take me home. But at the same time, I would never do it myself. So I was in that kind of depressed mood. And then one afternoon, And this has really been a turning point in my life. One afternoon, I was sitting on my desk, on my study, and then the phone rang. And I picked it up, and it said, "With Mama?" And I said, "Mama?" You say, "Are you not in the hospital?" And she was in and out of the hospital at that time. She was in her 80s, and she had all kinds of arthritis temporalis, all kinds of things. And she was in and out. And I said, "Are you not in the hospital?" And she said, "Yes, yes, I'm in the hospital." And I said, "What's the matter?" Because she never called. She was a passive type. We always had to call her, me and my sisters. I said, "What's the matter?" And then she said, "Joanna?" No, she said, child, can you forgive me?" And I was immediately crying. I said, "Why? And what's the matter?" And she said, "Yeah, you know, when you went to India, I went to India to look for answers of all the things that happened to me. When you went to India, I had such a hard judgment." And she said, "And when you left your marriage, I was so judgmental of you. And when I went to India, she was really hard. She said, yeah, she's going to the devil, she's going to all these gurus, and she's going, you know, she couldn't, it was fear. I know it was fear, so I understood it. But at the same time, it was hard for me. But then she, yeah. And then she said, and she mentioned a whole lot of things that she regretted. And she said, and then I said, "Oh, Mama, I understand it, because I was so difficult to understand. It's okay, you know, it's okay." And I was crying all the time. And then she said, "No, but," and then there came another part. Simple things like, yeah, because when you lived together with your first husband, with Age, was my first husband, said, "I didn't give you a refrigerator because you were not married. Will you forgive me?" And I saw this refrigerator. I was hurt at the time, but also these simple things, she wanted to mention them. So I was only crying. My desk was completely wet, and I was so. And afterwards, this had such a big impact. Afterwards, I really felt home on Mother Earth. I felt I wanted to continue. Somehow I had missed that so much. And this saying, "Can you forgive me?" I sometimes say to people, when you're a parent, why don't you, without life review, why don't you you can always call your child and say, "Oh, I'm sorry that I pushed you in the wrong direction, or that I judged your girlfriend so much," or so. Because it opens gates of love. My heart opened immediately. I felt like, wow. And because this had been a block from, a heavy block, always this knowing that you're what you lived, and also helping a lot of people, but in the family circle and the close friend circles, always this judgment. I felt then how much of a weight that had been on me. So it opened my heart so much. And sometimes I cannot be happier. Sometimes lately there came a woman to me. It's maybe the 10th time that I tell this story about my mother. And lately there came a woman to me also in the break, and she said, "I just called my daughter and I will see her the next weekend. I'm going to visit her." And she hadn't seen her in 10 years. And then I'm crying because I know love is there again and will be there again. And we are sometimes fearful to do that. My mother was, after all, such a great lady. She didn't have only that life review, but she picked up the phone, which takes great courage. And afterwards, I felt when I came home, the relationship had totally changed. Her eyes lit up when I came, and she was so happy. And we talked about what she had seen past relatives, dead relatives, and soon, a few years after her death, for the first time she came to me in the room, always like a light bulb. I knew it was her. And after I knew it was her, and the first time she said again, "Forgive me, please." And afterwards, she told me how it was in heaven. And because you say jobs in heaven, she definitely had jobs. One time she came to say goodbye. She came for the last time, she said, for a while. And she said, yeah, like very excited. She said, yeah, I'm not coming in the near time so often anymore because I got an assignment, like I can receive young children who've just passed over. And I thought, is it a sort of school there? And but she was definitely so happy, like she was promoted, you know. And she was so, yeah, okay, my time is up. It was not as I prepared. It's a bit jet lag, but I hope you understood what I meant to say.
Ones. In April 2006, while I was at a workshop in New Mexico, I had an encounter with near death, in which I was allowed to experience the oneness of all creation and our true identity as unconditional love. After that, I knew that something within me had gone through a profound and fundamental shift. No longer could I be the hard-charging, Gestapo-like chief financial officer, wife and mother who needed to control everyone and everything around me. This shift originated in the depths of my being and required from me substantial changes in the way I live my life. Over the past 7 years, I have taken the necessary time to integrate this incredibly transformational experience through yoga, meditation, deep self-inquiry, and quiet contemplation of the knowledge that I gained. Today is my first public appearance since my near death, and I want to express my deep gratitude to each of you for being here to witness this important day for me.
Is this your birthday?
Yes. Thank you so much. My near death was caused by a tooth implant, don't ever have one, and drug interaction that left me in what's called rhabdomyolysis, which is total cellular dehydration. Eben explained it all to me, but it's, kind of complicated. But basically, I was at a workshop. I ended up in the ICU in St. Vincent's Hospital in Santa Fe in a coma and seizures. I was told later about 4 hours from death. I was unconscious for about 3 days while the doctors worked to bring me back through a special hydration system. Now, compared to other experiences I have heard and read about, my near death was very mild in comparison. I didn't see any light or my deceased loved ones or spiritual being or orbs. I didn't see anything. Everything was totally telepathic to me and came in as a vivid knowing of what had happened while I was unconscious. But as I came back in, I knew that I had been fully and completely out of my body. And I also knew that my body is definitely not what I am. I was huge and free and totally integrated into what I refer to as the field of being. In this field, I merged with everything that has been, is, and will be into a oneness and wholeness that defies description. We just don't have the language to explain it. As I came back into consciousness and began to experience what felt to me like my new self, there was a feeling, a vibration that was in me that was brand new. It was a new resonance. And the best words that I could ever come up with to describe this feeling is unconditional love. And I knew that rather than a body, this feeling, this vibration is who I truly am. This for me was a direct experience of my soul. As C.S. Lewis so beautifully said, you do not have a soul, you are a soul. You have a body. This was my direct experience. Unlike many experiencers who have not a lot of background in spiritual awakening prior to their NDE, I had started on an awakening journey in 1995 that was triggered by my reading the book Seat of the Soul by Gary Zukav. Now, by awakening, I mean the self-remembering process that so many of us are going through to awaken to or remember our true identity as unconditional love. Even though I had had 11 years of in-depth exposure to this process through yoga, meditation, and study with many renowned teachers, once I came back into consciousness, the hard work of integration began. Yes, I had to physically recover, which took about 6 months, but that was easy compared to the mental, emotional, and psychological work I had to do to fully integrate my experience. I immediately stopped working and haven't worked since, and thank goodness this was 2006 and not the crash of 2008, because I was able to successfully cash out of the entrepreneurial IT company that I had helped found. Now, during this time, I created my website called seeingthelight.org, on which I tell my story of awakening and near death, set within the heartbreaking dissolution of my 30-year marriage to Jim. This writing and sharing was deeply healing for me. As well, Seeing the Light provides a roadmap for others for their awakening journey that includes many tools and resources that can be of help to them. When studying the approach of other NDEers, I found that many get lost in the mystical aspects of their experience and stay there, telling their story over and over again. This is because that even after an NDE, as we come back in, we still have in place the same unhealed karmic personality patterns that we did before our NDE. And the worst part is that we aren't even aware that these self-defeating patterns are in place. I felt I wanted to do it differently. I wanted to do the deep inner work that would help me to truly embody this vibration of unconditional love that we experienced. Before I could feel comfortable inviting others to come home to themselves, I had to make sure that I was home myself. For ultimately, what we are is so much more important than what we write or what we say. So, I had to unravel my ego. And given my ego, I had a lot of unraveling to do. The ego is, which I define as the belief within ourselves that we are a separate entity. That kind of ego is fueled by fear and will do anything to protect its unique existence. It will play around with special love to try to get its needs met, but wants nothing to do with unconditional love. At its worst, it is violent and corrupt, and unfortunately, we see that all too often around us. At its best, the ego is reactionary and judgmental. Are we getting a little closer to home, folks? Yes. I've used a variety of practices over the years in this unraveling process, and I only have time to highlight a very few, but I'll be happy to discuss any of these with you, and there are many more on my website. First, the deconstruction of negative thought and the acceptance of what is before us right now, no matter how grief-filled, is critical to embodying love. The best way I've found to embrace this process is the work of Byron Katie. She, through her spontaneous spiritual awakening, created a process she calls the work, which is very simple and easy to understand. And it is designed to help us eliminate the negative thoughts that cause us so much suffering. It is profiled in her internationally best-selling book, Loving What Is. Second, I learned about my own ego structure through an in-depth study of the Enneagram, which is a personality typing system that combines ancient spiritual wisdom with modern psychology. It defines for us the shadow sides of our behaviors, called our passions, which for me were control and aggression, and helps us unravel them so we can more fully live in the light and love of the virtues of our being, which for me are innocence and vulnerability. Most importantly, I learned through yoga, meditation, and consistent spiritual study the self-observation technique of witness consciousness, which teaches us to live fully in the present moment through the redefinition of self. The absolute best source for learning about how to observe yourself and be the witness is The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. I teach from this book, and I read it at least once a year, and I refer to it often. Again, The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. So the deconstruction of negative thought, an in-depth understanding of our own ego structures, and cultivation of witness consciousness are three incredibly powerful practices for embodying unconditional love. To close, I want to share with you some of the key lessons I learned through my experience and the 7 years of integration that followed. We are not at all what our minds have constructed us to be as bounded organisms. Once we begin to access and understand this, the beingness of who we really are, that so wants to be born within us, starts coming online as presence. And when this arises, what arises then is a compassion, a love, a radical intimacy for the living present moment. For love in the past is a memory. Love in the future is a fantasy. Real love, true love, can only exist in the present moment. And this requires a dedication to presence. Love and presence are one and the same. So I have learned to have a radically intimate relationship with what is happening right now. No judgment, no reactivity, just an acceptance of and allowing of what is flowing into my life. And I have learned through this type of personal relationship with presence to transmute my personal free will, which is of the ego, into universal will, which is within my spirit. I no longer try to make things happen in my life. Rather, I simply wait patiently and let that source energy, that larger part of me that is love itself, decide what is best moment to moment. But most importantly, I have learned that love is all there is, and we are it. That is my and your immortal reality. You and I are one and the same. We are love incarnate. And if we are willing to do the deep inner work, we have the opportunity to live there together in oneness and in wholeness, right here, right now. And if we do, our world will be healed. I invite you to come home to this deep and eternal truth. And no matter what is happening in your life, whether it be good or bad, grief-filled or joy-filled, please remember what my wonderful teacher, Adyashanti, says. all is well, more well than you could ever imagine. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am very honored to be here with you today. This is my first IANS conference, so I am thrilled to share what I understand about eternal love. So thank you for being here with us, and thank you to all of you. I am honored to share this panel with you. 42 years ago, 858 Vernon Street, Woonsocket, Rhode Island, second floor, middle bedroom, the blue curtains moved, and there stood my grandmother 3 days after she passed away. I saw her with the clarity that I see you. She had passed away with a broken heart, gone, longing for her husband, wanting to be with him, and I saw her there. I knew exactly what time it was, where I was, and what was going on. That began my journey of understanding the power of eternal love. It began my quest as a 10-year-old kid to understand the importance of who we are to each other and how we can influence the world by holding that energy. Fast forward 20 years later, I'm at a small venue with 15 people. Everything changed. I collapsed to the floor. My cousin was there sponsoring the event. She touched my skin and she told me later that my skin was like that of our deceased grandfather. I saw some light. I followed that light. I saw and felt the presence of energy. I saw my body lying on that floor. But I knew that there was something else. I had this feeling that I had to follow this energy. As I realized that something was changing, I looked at my body. I saw my cousin tapping my skin, finding my pulse. Nothing could be done but to follow that light. And so I saw that light in front of me. I realized that the light was within me. I saw the light behind me. I saw that light moving me. And as I looked further, there was this magnificent and extraordinary radiant angel there. As if the angel had known I was coming. No words were spoken, just this. Somewhere in me I heard them say, "Welcome home." I said, "What do you mean?" "Welcome home." In front of me was this magnificent door, this place, a place to go. And I heard them say, without any words, that you must enter here. The light became stronger and brighter. It was as if you were looking into the eyes of an old friend. I opened that door, and I will never forget this. That light pierced every part of my being. Every part of me became alive in that moment. I heard and felt the breath of God whisper in my ear. I heard, "I love you." 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 And I'm giving you the watered-down version of my experience because I've got 15 minutes to tell you what I have to say. But I heard, "I love you." I love you. I saw the light pass across me. I saw the greenest green that you could possibly imagine and the bluest skies that you could possibly imagine. And there was my grandmother from 20 years ago sending me kisses. And I heard, "I love you." It was the most profound feeling I've ever had in my entire life. I stayed there for a while, what felt to me like forever. And they said, "You have to go back and you have to tell everybody that love is everlasting, that love is eternal, that when you say 'I love you,' it matters, that when you share that energy and you stretch your hand to someone in need, it matters, that when you whisper in the ear of a friend, it matters." And I heard, "I love you" again and again and again until I saw myself back on that floor. There's no explanation of what happened to my body, but I understand the journey that I was meant to take. The sights, the sounds, the colors, the music, the song that they sang in my ear, the clothes that they had worn, the energy that was palpable, was all about love. I understood in that moment that love endures, that the power of love, that when you say I love you, it stretches across the veil, it goes through the doorways, out the window, and it touches the heart of the person that you're sharing that energy with. My life up until that moment has been working as a nurse, and I was the charge nurse of a large nursing facility. I had 63 patients on my floor, and you knew when somebody was close to going. So fast forward again, several years after my near-death experience. I walked by Grace's room, we'll call her, 90 years old. She has survived every family member. There's no one left to call, no one to talk to, no one to say, hey, why don't we sit with her? She had been at her final destination here in this physical plane. And I walked into the room with my stethoscope and I placed it near her heart. And her heartbeat was 140 beats a minute. And I thought, oh, something's happening here. I called the doctor. We talked about her code status. We did everything we were supposed to do for her medically, and then I summoned my staff into the room. And I sat next to her bed. And I told her the story of what that heavenly place looks like. I whispered in her ear that when all of this is finished, this physical experience, you too, like I and many others, you too will cross that threshold between here and there. And I whispered in her ear, and I stroked her right arm, and I held her right hand, and I said, I love you. I said, I love you. You see, the whole point is remembering the love that was given to us, that was presented to us as we crossed that barrier from our physical experience to our spiritual experience. And I whispered in Grace's ear, and I said, I love you. And I held her hand. And I put my stethoscope back onto her heart. Her heartbeat was 20. And I held her hand. And I said, I love you. And I remembered the scene that I was painted, that I felt, that I experienced when I had my near-death experience. And I said, I love you. And I heard her heart rate at 10 beats, and 9, and 8, and 7, and 6, and 5. And then I said, I love you again. And 2, and 1. And then her physical body was gone. And then I felt this enormous peace again. I felt that peace again as if I had walked through that door one more time. That when we remember the love, it changes us. It lifts us up. It takes us to where we're supposed to be. Fast forward again. I'm now at the most difficult juncture of my entire life. My mother is about to die. People come up to me and say, well, what are you worried about? You've had a near-death experience. You know all about it. I said, yeah, but I'm a 50-year-old kid that's about to say goodbye to the one person who has stood with me every single day. I walked into her room. She had this glow in her eyes. I will never forget it. She looked at me and she said, oh, she said, I get you now. 50 years old, she finally got me. She says, I get you now. She said, last night in my dreams, I saw my family. I felt that energy that you've been talking about your entire life, Roland. Her eyes welled up and mine did. And she looked at me and she said, what are you going to do? What are you going to do when I'm gone? I said, Mom, I have no idea. I've never lost my mother before. I have no idea. But I knew, and I know, that when we remember the love, then we have the power to unlock the pain. We have the power to see our destiny, to stand in our truth, to encourage peace, and to be a voice of that energy. When we remember the love, it gives us the insight to see beyond the veil. So I've lived every single day for the last 40 years of my life, 42 years of my life, telling the stories that love is eternal. I saw it when I was 10. I see it in the faces of the people that I meet. I felt it when I held Grace's hand. I felt it when my mother said that it's going to be okay. Love has the power to give us hope. Do you know why I talk about the other side? Do you know why? I'm not in the mission or in the business of talking to the departed. I am in the business of talking to the living, so that we have hope and courage and strength, and that we have the whatever it takes to remember the power of that love. I want to leave you with one final story. I went to the doctor's about a week ago. My doctor's in Rhode Island, and he said to me, "Hey, when you went to the hospital in February, we checked every part of you. You were fine. Everything about you was fine." The nurse comes in the room. She slowly closes the door. It creaks closed, and she's not looking at me. She turns around and she says to me, "Is it true? Do you see dead people?" That's what she said to me. She should have been more interested in my care, but she was interested in what I saw, what I felt about that place. What I know is that when you step through that doorway, you will never forget the love. And when you have the courage to remember it, you can achieve the greatest things. I thank you for listening, and I send you love and blessings. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I want to thank our panelists so much for being here and for sharing from their hearts. That's what the love is all about, is letting that power, that energy, that force flow through us into the world. This is the love that they know can bring healing and hope to many. And I hope you find the healing and the hope that you need while you're here at this conference. If you would like to read more stories from people who experienced that love, my book is Revelations of Profound Love in the bookstore. It has over 100 people quoted and talking about the love they experienced. And you can't really hear these stories, I don't believe, or read this book without that love building up in you also. If you would like to visit with any of our speakers, we're going to be available back at the back during the break. We have time for a couple of questions. Is there anyone that would like to ask a question of one of our speakers? If there's not, we'll go ahead and close this session. Thank you so much for being here. May the love be with you.